Agriculture, a presentation of the Communications Unit, Ministry of Agriculture. I'm your producer and host, Christopher Holder. We are at the end of Agriculture Month this year, and it has been a hectic month. Some of the activities scheduled for this month is going to spill over into November, into the first week of November, as we seek to wrap up the many items that we've had scheduled for this month. The Minister, of course, has had to join Vice President Dr. Bart Jagdeo and the President as they conducted their business. Of course, agriculture is the mainstay of the government's focus, in addition to oil and gas. So whenever there are engagements that require an agricultural presence or input, then the Agriculture Minister has to be there. And so he has been away from mainstream agriculture on several occasions, and forcing the rescheduling of some of the events scheduled for the various agencies of the Ministry of Agriculture. Nevertheless, most of them have come off very well. In this week's edition, we will be bringing you highlights of the Open Day activities for two agencies, the MMA-ADA and NARI, the National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute, NARI. We will bring you highlights of that. We will bring you also news of an MOU signed with an international organization for the provision of agricultural services across the board. They will be setting up shop in every region of the country as they seek to provide this new type of service to the local agriculture sector. This Week in Agriculture, of course, comes to you every Sunday at this time, and it's a presentation of the Communications Unit, as I mentioned earlier. We will be back with details of this week's presentation in just a moment. The Ministry of Agriculture is warning members of the public that it is illegal to dump garbage of any kind near to or into drainage and irrigation waterways across the country. The NDIA, the agency tasked with the maintenance of drainage and irrigation in Guyana, has noted that there is an alarming increase in the incidence of garbage getting into DNI waterways and causing blockages in the first instance. But worse than that, the garbage that includes clothing, rotting carcasses, pieces of wood and metal gets past protective grills of the critical mobile and fixed pumps, resulting in damage to the pumps, which have to be taken out of service for repairs, placing communities at risk, especially during the rainy season. The Ministry of Agriculture notes that when this happens, millions have to be spent on repairs to the pumps and on clearing the canals of debris thrown there by irresponsible citizens. The ministry warns that rangers of the NDIA will be on the lookout for those engaging in this illegal practice. Persons caught will be made to face the full force of the law. A message from the NDIA, Ministry of Agriculture. Here's an important notice. Do you know that it is illegal to import, store, distribute, sell, and purchase antibiotics without a license or prescription, as the case may be? According to the Antibiotic Act of 1952, owners of livestock and other animals are not permitted to purchase and use antibiotics unless prescribed by a veterinarian. It should be noted that the misuse of antibiotics could result in the development of resistance to the very antibiotic, which in turn will pose health risks to the animal and to humans. The GLDA advises that farmers should not administer antibiotics to animals unless prescribed by a veterinarian. Non-compliance with this act will result in fines and imprisonment. A message from the Guyana Livestock Development Authority, Ministry of Agriculture. The National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute offers specialized services to Guyana's crop farmers. We conduct research and provide extension and quarantine services to ensure Guyana's food and nutrition security, sustainable agricultural development, and income generation for our farmers. We assist farmers to adapt climate-smart technologies, and at a subsidized cost, farmers could now purchase shade plastic, shade mesh, and irrigation sprinklers to avoid crop loss from the effects of climate change. Our organic soil enhancers are inexpensive inexpensive and a viable alternative to imported brands. Farm certification, import and export permits for agricultural commodities, soil testing, pest and disease management, among other services, are provided free of cost. Farmers can access quality planting citrus material at our 9 plant nursery locations. We are working with Hope Estate and other stakeholders to resuscitate the coconut industry. For more information, visit our website or call us on telephone number 220-2841, 220-5730. Agriculture Month 2022 is just about over, with the exception of a few events that will spill over into November. It was a month in which the various agencies of the Ministry of Agriculture engaged in activities and events that showcased Guyana's efforts to advance the agriculture sector and position Guyana to contribute in a major way to Vision 25 by 2025. That is, reducing the CARICOM region's food import bill by 25% by the year 2025. This past week saw open days being held at 3 key agencies of the Ministry of Agriculture, namely the Mahaica-Myconia-Barry Agricultural Development Authority, MMA-ADA in West Berbice, the National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute, NARI, and the Guyana Livestock Development Authority, GLDA, both on the east coast of Demerara. Speaking during the open day at NARI, Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa called on the large gathering of secondary school students to pursue careers in agriculture, as Guyana is now playing a critical role in the CARICOM region's food security agenda.
I am very happy and elated to see so many young people here. And this augurs well for us in the agriculture sector. I hope when you leave here today, as Mr. Barlow would have said, that you leave here with the intention of going into the agriculture sector, because today agriculture is one of the most important sectors. And as Minister of Agriculture, I'm not biased here, but you as young people will realize, because you have lived through it, we have seen what took place over the last 2.5 years in the world. There was a scarcity of food, and there is still a scarcity of food in the world. And if we are not involved in agriculture, if we don't develop this sector, then we cannot be food secure. I know for a fact that Guyana has the potential of being once again the breadbasket of the Caribbean. But we cannot say that. We have to perform and ensure that we produce. And today I am very happy to say that we are driving the agri-food system in the Caribbean. We are leading the entire Caribbean in agriculture and food security. Our president is the lead on agriculture in CARICOM. Guyana is chairing the ministerial task force on food security in CARICOM. So you could see so many roles we are playing now in terms of moving our food security and our agriculture agenda. And the entire Caribbean is looking towards Guyana for that leadership. And if we have to provide that leadership, then you, the young people, will have to get involved. Because what we have seen over the last few years, we have seen the people who are involved in agriculture, they are from a mature age. And we'll have to prepare you to take charge of this important sector. Today we are producing we are producing 60% of the food that we are consuming. As a government, we are not satisfied with that. We want to increase production, and we also want to increase the number of food that we are producing. So that is why we are diversifying. We are adding new crops to the traditional crops that we have been producing. So we are looking now to go into corn and soya, so that we can produce the feed, all the feed for the livestock industry. We are looking to go into high-value crops, and we have started it already where young people are involved in producing broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce, carrots, those high-value crops. And you as students can get yourself involved. And what we are doing in the Ministry of Agriculture, we want to develop agriculture and do it in a smarter way, do it in a more modern way, and do it in a way that you can be involved. Because you know, before time, as the CEO would have said, that people are saying when you're in agriculture, your skin becomes dirty and things like that. We don't want things like that. We want to do it in a more modern way. We want to do it in a way that we can prepare for what is happening in the world. Climate change. Climate change is real. We are having serious flooding. We are having serious problem in this part of the hemisphere, in the Caribbean, in South America. And in Guyana, we are below the sea level. And that is why we have to prepare to do it in a more smarter way, do it in a more modern way, and prepare for the climate change. And that is what we have been doing. If you look around the country, we have been modernizing the sector. We have been doing it in a more smarter way. We are involving more young people to get into this sector. So I know for a fact that you are representing different schools across this country. I don't know how many schools are here, but I will encourage the CEO and NARI that they should ensure that these schools who are here today, we have a vibrant agriculture sector, our department in those schools. So those teachers who are here this morning, I want to assure you that NARI will work with your school to develop the agriculture sector in your school so that students can have the necessary facility to do their SDAs and other things like that. We will develop the crop section and also the poultry section so that we can help the school to get back into agriculture and develop the interest of all the young people back into the agriculture sector. So let me wish you well, as the CEO said, that today is not a day for speeches, but I hope that when you go around, you will look at the various aspects of agriculture and you will find yourself involved and be interested in this very important sector so all of us can prepare for food security. Thank you very much.
The Open Day afforded students the opportunity of interacting with the various scientists and general extension staff at NARI and viewed the various exhibits showcasing the work of the Research Institute. Across at the MMA, the Open Day saw exhibits of the various drainage and irrigation structures within the scheme and also featured booths at which Republic Bank and GBTI showcased their many financial packages available to farmers. There were also booths displayed by various agencies of the Ministry of Agriculture, including the GRDB with its rice value-added products, the New Guyana Marketing Corporation with its locally manufactured products and a range of services on offer to local farmers and producers. In his feature address to those in attendance at the MMA Open Day, Minister Mustafa said government is fully committed to realizing the full potential of Guyana's agriculture sector and that the MMA ADA is playing a major role in this regard.
Today is a very important day when we are meeting in Agriculture Month to take stock of what we have done over the last year at this entity. And as the regional chairman said, that MMA over the last year has delivered a lot to the farmers in Region 5. And Region number 5, the MMA scheme, is the largest agriculture scheme in our country. And one of the most important productive areas for us in Guyana. And this scheme, since its establishment in 1978, we have seen that this MMA scheme has made a tremendous contribution to our country's development. We have ensured over the last 2 years that we restore this scheme, this agriculture scheme, the MMA scheme, to viability, to service, so that it could function effectively. We knew for a fact that we have seen a period when we saw rapid decline in activities in the scheme, in all the sectors, in terms of livestock, other crops, rice. We have seen, because of conditions and measures that were implemented that were not conducive for the development of agriculture in our country. Unlike those policies, and unlike the former government that had imposed those policies, We as a government, this PPP civic government, under the leadership of His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, we recognize the importance of agriculture because we have seen what took place in the world over the last 2.5 years when the pandemic started. Many countries around the world would have had funds, would have had large capital, but they were unable to get food for their population. There was a scarcity of food in the world, and up to date there are scarcity of food. Many countries are unable to get basic food items. And as a country and as a government, we recognize for us to have food security, we have to develop the agriculture sector. We have to make the agriculture sector more attractive. We have to put measures and implement measures in this sector that are friendly to the farmers. Measures that will encourage the farmers of our country to produce. Because we recognize the important role that you, the farmers, have been playing over the years. We recognize without your contribution, without your dedication, without your hard work, our country will be unable to produce the food that we need. Today, as a country, we are producing 60% of the food that we are consuming. But as a government, we are not satisfied with 60%. We want to ensure that we produce all the food that we are using and we are consuming. And we don't want only to produce food for local consumption. We want to produce to be a net exporter of food and food product to the region and out of the region. That is why when we assumed government 2 years ago in August of 2020, our country had lost its place in CARICOM in leading the agri agenda and the food system. And that was a disgrace to us because as a country, since the formation of CARICOM, we always lead on food security and agriculture and the agriculture agenda. So much so that all the presidents of our country would have crafted ideas and strategies that had lead CARICOM to have better food security, to have better plan in the agriculture sector. And I am happy to say that at the first meeting of the CARICOM heads of government in February of 2021, His Excellency the President would have rescued that position once again. And today I am proud to say that Guyana is once again leading the agriculture agenda in CARICOM. But we are not only leading it, but we are seeing that many countries in the Caribbean are looking forward for guidance from Guyana today. As I'm speaking here, yesterday we had the visit, and we had the Prime Minister of Barbados was in Guyana. We were discussing agriculture, how Guyana can contribute and help in reducing the food import bill of CARICOM. CARICOM has said, and they have reiterated at CARICOM meetings, that the food import bill, which is a large amount of money that we expended every year in CARICOM, that we have to reduce it by 25%. The food import bill of CARICOM annually is between 5 to 8 billion US dollars. Things like poultry meat, CARICOM country imported from North America and other parts of the world. And we have the ability in CARICOM to satisfy the demands. So what we have done, with the other CARICOM country, we have developed an agenda where we have prioritized a number of commodities that normally demand or we have to spend large amount of foreign exchange. And what we are doing over the next 3 years, we will increase production in those areas and we'll diversify our economy. And if we have to be successful in reducing the food import bill of CARICOM, then Guyana has to play that important role. We have large, arable acres of land. We have abundance of fresh water, two main ingredients. And as I am speaking here today, we are seeing a number of investors that are knocking on the door of Guyana to come and invest in the agriculture sector. Over the last 2 years, we have seen a renewed interest in agriculture. We were competing with an oil and gas sector where many persons before August of 2020 were saying wait until the revenue come from the oil and gas sector, then we'll have development. But as a government, you have to have vision. And all of our presidents in the PPP civic government develop crafted ideas. Let us not forget the Jagdeus initiative. You all remember the Jagdeus initiative that was adopted by CARICOM. Today they are calling it the binding constraint in agriculture. Those 10 points that were developed by former President Jagdeo today has been adopted by CARICOM. And at the last investment forum that we had at the Atachong Convention Center, many leaders from CARICOM who spoke at that forum regretted that we had not implemented earlier, or else we would not be in this position today. Those things, those problems that we are experiencing now were identified 10 years, 15 years ago by President Jagdeo, former president. Today it has been adopted by CARICOM. Again, we are seeing to reduce the food import bill of CARICOM. We haven't only have ideas coming out from Guyana and our president saying that we have to reduce it. We have had a comprehensive presentation at the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in Belize, where our president presented to CARICOM a plan how the food import bill can be reduced by 25% in 2025. That is why we recognize that for us to move to reduce that bill, then Guyana has to play that important role. That is why you are seeing so much budgetary allocation being made in the agriculture sector. And this scheme, we have revitalized this scheme once again. When I became Minister of Agriculture, we have seen a number of defective and dilapidated structure, equipment that was not working. Many farmers were complaining about the system and the services that were offered. And we started immediately to put system in place.
The Agriculture Minister noted that the MMA ADA is today in a position to fully discharge its mandate of service to farmers by way of maintenance and upgrades of D&I structures, farm-to-market dams and roads, etc. The MMA Open Day also saw Minister Mustafa handing over several leases to farmers of the MMA ADA, some of whom have been waiting for as long as 20 years.
I'm on Ross. So Ross. fix it in a very timely manner now. Mr. Raccoon. Thank you very much. We now call on Mr. Sujat Singh. Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh, jump up right away. You were waiting for your release a long time, right?
A total of 128 farmers received their leases during the presentation exercise. Among the many exhibits on display was one featuring the superior breeds of sheep and goat as presented by the West Berbice Small Ruminants Association. It is these breeds that are usually used to cross with the Barbados black-belly sheep. Finally, on this week's edition of This Week in Agriculture, the Government of Guyana, through the Ministry of Agriculture, during the week inked a Memorandum of Understanding with Planet One Agro Ventures Limited. Planet One Agro Ventures Limited forms part of the Planet One group of companies, which serves as a potent vehicle for farmers to step up and achieve their production targets. Its service centers provide farmers with access to agricultural know-how on modern farming techniques and storage practices. The MOU with Agro One Ventures paves the way for the development of several integrated farm service centers across Guyana. Once established, the centers will seek to improve Guyana's agro productivity as well as farmers' processing capabilities. In signing the MOU, Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa said the agreement, to some extent, makes way for a modernized sector which complements government's vision in this regard. According to Minister Mustafa, over the next 6 months, Planet One Agro Ventures Limited is expected to prepare a detailed project plan, as well as an implementation strategy and a financial proposal, after which both parties will move forward with the project, which is expected to be operationalized before the end of November 2024. The Ministry of Agriculture is warning members of the public that it is illegal to dump garbage of any kind near to or into drainage and irrigation waterways across the country. The NDIA, the agency tasked with the maintenance of drainage and irrigation in Guyana, has noted that there is an alarming increase in the incidence of garbage getting into DNI waterways and causing blockages in the first instance. But worse than that, the garbage that includes clothing, rotting carcasses, pieces of wood and metal gets past protective grills of the critical mobile and fixed pumps, resulting in damage to the pumps, which have to be taken out of service for repairs, placing communities at risk, especially during the rainy season. The Ministry of Agriculture notes that when this happens, millions have to be spent on repairs to the pumps and on clearing the canals of debris thrown there by irresponsible citizens. The ministry warns that rangers of the NDIA will be on the lookout for those engaging in this illegal practice. Persons caught will be made to face the full force of the law. A message from the NDIA Ministry of Agriculture. Well, that's all the time we have in this week's edition of This Week in Agriculture, a presentation of the Communications Unit, Ministry of Agriculture. Of course, we're down to the end of Agriculture Month this year, and we've still got a week of activities in November to round out the schedule of events for Agriculture Month. And we certainly hope that you are able to be part of those activities as they were. We have the commissioning of several agro-processing units that are going to be happening in the coming week or in the weeks ahead as we seek to advance the interest of agriculture across the board. This Week in Agriculture is produced for television by Matrix Video Productions and Advertising and brought to you in association with the Communications Unit, Ministry of Agriculture.